I think the key with rewilding, especially in our area, is to let land breathe and let it regenerate on its own. We don't actually have to do that much interventions. We remove the human infrastructure, we rip up the fences, and we just let the land restore itself.
I'm Adam Vaughan, Environment Editor at The Times, and today I'm joined by Andreia Pawel, the co-founder of Orca, a conservation project working to rewild southern Namibia's vast Orange River-Karoo region and create a more sustainable future for its people and wildlife. Andreia, welcome to the podcast. Could you just start for listeners by introducing yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Andreia, so thank you for having me here today.
Tell them a little bit about what you do, Andreia.
So I am the co-founder of Orca, and Orca is a non-profit based in southern Namibia. We're the only non-profit organization based in the south of Namibia, and we are building a transfrontier park with the aim of securing 1 million-hectare reserve on the Namibian and South African side of the Orange River to reintroduce all the megafauna that has been locally extinct for over 100 years for the benefit of the indigenous people, the commercial communities on the land, and for the people of the land to benefit from the natural resources.
And so Orca is obviously the acronym, right, for Orange River-Karoo Conservation Area, which is, I can see why you went for the acronym. Tell us a little bit about the landscape there, the history, and also, people might also not even know where that is, so just give a little bit of sense of the geography of it as well.
Okay, so Namibia is in southern Africa. We've got Angola to the north, we've got Botswana to the east, and South Africa to the south. And we are on the very, very tip of Namibia, as south as you can get on the border of South Africa, along the Orange River. And the Orange River is the fourth largest river in Africa. And it's this absolutely lush Eden, this vein that just breaks up a semi-desert environment.
I was going to say, because that in itself might be a surprise to people, right? Because their image of Namibia might be those famous sand dunes along the coast.
Exactly. So it's very different from that. You've got these gravel plains. It's a geological chaos. It's extinct volcanic land. So you've got massive mountains of black rock, and then interspersed with these quartz mountains. So, and as far as the eye can see, it's just undulating peaks. And it's got the succulent karoo, the Nama karoo, and the desert biome. So it's an ecotone where 3 different biomes meet. And it's the only area in Namibia where these 3 biomes meet. So it's very ecologically important. And a biodiversity hotspot.
And give a sense of the history of it. Why is it needing this restoration work that you're looking at doing?
Yeah, so the Nama Karoo is less than 1% formally protected, and it's also a biodiversity hotspot. And it's got very rare and endemic plant species. So it's got the succulents, the aloes, these living pebbles, which we'll get into later. And it's also prime habitat for black rhino, and in terms of conservation, no area in sub-Saharan Africa has had more mass extinction of wildlife. So the numbers that we see today, they don't reflect what they used to be in the past, but also the diversity of species. So we don't have a predator-prey dynamic in the area. We just have some antelope left. There's no predators that are keeping the antelope on the go. And so we're having to do human intervention.
Got you. So maybe this is a slightly over the top word, but to an extent, the food web and the ecosystem's a bit broken.
And if you make the Orange River a political border, and in the past it used to be obviously the central area, and the animals used to be safe to be on both sides and cross. And so we used to have elephant along the Orange River. We used to have hippo. And the last hippo was shot 100 years ago. And so the elephants and the hippos and these wildlife, these major megafauna, actually haven't been there that long ago. And so the idea is to bring them back and create an ecologically balanced ecosystem.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting into that. So we're going to delve into that in some detail. I just wondered, first of all, so people can get a sense of you, how did your personal journey into conservation begin, and what drew you to that part of Namibia in particular?
Yeah, it's quite random how I ended up there.
Yeah, go on.
So I'm Brazilian, but I was born and raised here in London, went to international school, and since a young child just been absolutely obsessed with chimpanzees and primates. I studied primatology at DICE in Canterbury. I did a master's, and that's where I met Red. And Red is the co-founder of Orca with me. and he had been onto the land in Namibia to map the land. He had been invited on there by a private landowner. And when I met him at university, he was showing me pictures of the land, and I just knew in that moment, I was like, I'm going there. I want to be in Namibia. And I've always...
Give us Red's full name.
Edward Barthorpe.
Yeah. And so, sorry, you were saying he was the one who helped you go down. Go on, explain more.
Exactly. So both of us have just been obsessed with wildlife since children. He's born and raised in the Cotswold, English, but just obsessed with Africa since a young child. And we both knew we were going to do conservation in Africa. So after graduating from university, we moved to Tanzania, and then we got invited to initiate a tourism operation in Namibia.
Got you.
And so we moved to the land in Namibia to start a tourism venture. And it was a really disarming way to get to know the local community, get to know the indigenous people of the land, get to know the land itself over time, naturally, and then dream up something bigger.
Got you. So it's quite an interesting journey from primatology to that.
Yes, exactly.
And just give people a sense of, you sort of start touching on it, give people a sort of sense of why that part of that particular area of Namibia is really important to conserve. Give people a sense of that.
I mean, the land is a hidden gem, and it really speaks for itself. The land is not on the map in terms of tourism. When people go to Namibia, they know they go to the north of Namibia for photographic tourism, for conservation. All the NGOs are based in the north. This land is an absolute forgotten land and a hidden gem, and it's been taken over by commercial farmland. So
what sort of stuff? What do they farm there?
They're farming livestock, small stock, so goats and sheep. There's a few cattle farmers. But as you can imagine, with climate change and the land is getting drier and the land is becoming increasingly more untenable for farming. So there were some visionaries that saw this landscape as potential for conservation. And they secured a couple of private land units, parcels of land, predominantly for black rhino conservation in the future one day. And then that's how we kind of started and got invited onto the land.
Got you. And what's the sort of timeline? You when did you start the process? You sort of mentioned you took that sustainable tourism business on. When did you sort of start the process of conservation in this area?
So Red and I got there about 10 years ago. And it was just barren landscape. You know, the land had previously been trophy hunted and biltong hunted and had some small stock on it. So we got there 10 years ago. We dreamt up a company called Oana Namibia, and we built a tented camp and we ran these expeditions for 5 years. So they were gap year students coming out from the UK, from Germany, from Europe, and also we targeted a lot of the boarding schools here in the UK. So we had Harrow, Cheltenham, Glasgow, a few other schools came out, and they would run biology and conservation trips on the land. So that was the model. And it was a rewilding, let's work the land, let's get to know the land. And they would come out for 6 weeks at a time. And there was a conservation approach, a community element, and then a adventure bit. So mountain biking, rafting, sorts.
You mentioned trophy hunting, which people will have probably heard of, where it's sort of set up for the, and you mentioned another thing called built-in hunting. Just explain to people what that is, because they might not know what it is.
So biltong hunting, biltong is like beef jerky, a type of dried meat. And in the winter time, a lot of the farmers in the area, the commercial farmers, will invite hunters to come on the land and just sustainably shoot for biltong for meat production.
Got you. And I wanted to talk about rewilding, which is one of those things I think sometimes we take for granted in the environmental world, that people know what we're talking about, and people, UK listeners might think immediately of things like beavers. But do you just want to explain, give people a sort of a primer? What is rewilding? And I guess more importantly, what does it look like to you in Namibia?
Yeah. So when Red and I got there, the first things that we did is we started reading the archives, diary entries of, the grandfathers of the land, the elders, the farmers that used to be there, and also what are the archives and the diary entries in the museum in Windhoek, in the historical records. So what used to be there on the land, what's no longer there, and what's realistic in our lifetime and our time frame.
I'm surprised that there was that much data. Was there a sort of culture of natural history, or was it more of a sort of indigenous record keeping? I don't know. What was the sort of...
No, there's a lot of pioneers and a lot of explorers came through that area, and they wrote this beautiful historical records. And the abundance of wildlife that used to move through that area is incredible. And so we were quite shocked with what's left there today, and also the amount of the diversity and the amount of the population of numbers. So, I mean, that's where Red's passion is. Like he came onto the land because he wants to bring the trekbakken back. I don't know if you've heard of the trekbakken.
I've heard of it, but I don't think many other people will have. Do you want to tell them what it is?
So it is the largest terrestrial migration to have ever moved through our planet. And it's a springbok migration. And they
said I've heard of like the Serengeti and that migration, but go on.
Yeah, so everyone goes over to the Masai Mara, the Serengeti, to photograph the wildebeest and the zebra migration, which is epic. But the trekbakken would have dwarfed that migration. We would have had 6 million springbok move through the land from the Kalahari to the Namakwas, and they would follow the summer and winter rains. And the land, specifically where we are, needs to be trodden on by that amount of hoofs, that amount of numbers. It's very specific because it mixes up the soil and it allows for the seed bank to grow. And so it's very specific, it's very delicate, our soil and our landscape. And so that's one of the biggest visions why we're back there, is because we want to create this free movement of wildlife again and get this big migration. So I think that's really interesting. And just remind people what rewilding is. Oh yes.
Yeah.
We're good there.
Yeah.
Okay, so rewilding. When we got there, step one is let's secure landscape in perpetuity for conservation. So that's what Orca does. We've got our conservation standards and conservation principles. We approach the farmers, our land neighbors, and either we purchase the land or sign an agreement with them to manage the land sustainably. And so step one is to rip up the fences, allow for free movement of wildlife. Anything from your aardvarks or small reptiles need to be able to move. And then the larger buck as well, the antelope, need to be able to move, because the area is so arid and the rain is very, very specific. So, our drought spells are getting longer and longer. Usually in the past, it didn't rain maybe 3 to 4 years. Now our drought spells are 7 to 11 years.
Wow.
They're getting much longer. So we need land large enough that the antelope and the animals can start moving.
So they can go to where the water is.
Exactly.
Basically.
So that's step one. Rip up the fences. In terms of tangible steps of rewilding. Fix up all the water points on the land. So either natural water points, dams, ensure that there's water for the wildlife, and it's sweet water, not brackish water. And start removing some invasive tree species in the land, in the inland, and then secure some indigenous trees as well. So we've been doing some indigenous tree nurseries.
And have we, in terms of this rewilding you're hoping to do, have we had some species return already? And what do you hope to reintroduce over time? So
Sandfontein Nature Reserve, which are our partners, they're a game reserve and they've been there for 15, 20 years. And they're a major partner of Orca. They have brought back Hartmann's mountain zebra. They've brought back giraffe. We've got ostrich back onto the land. So they've done some small rewilding, and we're going to do our first phase of rewilding, reintroduction of wildlife in August on Orca landscape.
And that sounds like must be a big milestone for you, right?
Yeah, and it's not going to be new species that haven't been there before. But it's getting our prey numbers up.
Got you. So go on. We've got to the exciting bit. So go on. What we're going to be bringing back in August?
We're going to bring back some oryx, springbok, and ostrich, and we're going to be collaring them so that we can actually measure and monitor them and see where they're going on the landscape.
Got you. So the springbok, that whole migration is pretty much ended. Obviously not anywhere near. It's not just that it's smaller scale. It's more or less ended in that part of the world.
Yes, because what happened is when the commercial farming took over along the Orange River, they put up fences. And so with that came obviously hunting. The springbok, they can't jump the fences. They get stuck. And also it spread diseases. So the numbers rapidly went down from 6 million to about 10,000 left in southern Namibia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite
so it's a major
numbers,
decline.
And obviously rewilding, is a long process. It sounds like you're going to have to build up the ecology and some of the function of the ecosystem to get some of the, these species to thrive there. How are you going to track progress over time? What is that sort of slightly cliche question of what is success going to look like?
Yeah. I think the key with rewilding, especially in our area, is to let land breathe and let it regenerate on its own. You know, it's we don't actually have to do that much interventions. We remove the human infrastructure, we rip up the fences, and we just let the land restore itself. When we have a good year of rain, for example, this year we've had the best rain in 100 years. There are new species of flowers that we've never seen before. So this is the year to come. And this is also why we are reintroducing the wildlife this year.
You've been waiting for the right weather conditions.
Exactly. So, and also we need to monitor and watch the land and collect data over time before we start acting and intervening. So rewilding is observe, sit back, let the land heal, let it regenerate, and out of that, only now after 10 years of observing and collecting camera trap data, collecting all sorts of soil samples, are we implementing our conservation management plan. And so it's sort of trial and error. And we also, when you fly a drone over the area, you can directly compare commercial farmland neighbors land with our core conservation area, and you can directly see the difference in the grass.
Got you. So it's about benchmarking where you're at, basically. That's
exactly.
So that was partly why you had to wait till now, wait till the weather's right, and wait till you've looked at what was already there, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you talked about the importance of removing the fences. How much have you managed to remove so far, and what sort of impact has that begun to have on the land?
Yeah, we have removed kilometers worth, because when we came in, it's not only boundary fences that were there were all sorts of corrals, you know, internal fences. So our reserve manager, Yanni, is very busy with that. We've hired one of the farmer's sons, and he's our reserve manager, and he's incredible. And he's been working with a team from the local community, and they are removing fences by the kilometer. And I think we've done about 100 now.
Wow, about 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what sort of change impact is that having on the landscape?
It's amazing because
beyond obviously the visual change, is more than that.
As soon as you open a hole in a fence, within 24 hours, a zebra finds fresh grass and fresh grazing on the other side. And they're sort of the pioneering species that opens up the way for all the other species to follow. They sort of find it first. So it's fun to put camera traps on the newly taken down fences and see how quickly that they find fresh grazing on the other side.
And how does the farmer's son feel about that? I can imagine it's a little bit weird, because probably like, his grandfather or grandmother put the fence up.
Yeah, exactly. So Yanni was 100% farmer, and now I think he's like 99% farmer and 1% conservationist. Right. So we're like winning him over.
That's a start. Yeah. Look, let's talk about the work Orca's doing in the region. So particularly interested in the work you're doing with am I right in pronouncing it as Nama, the community, the local people? Just tell us about them and how you work with them, because people probably won't have heard of them.
Yeah, so the Nama people are a big reason why we're doing this work, and they are an incredibly special group of people, and they're often forgotten and marginalized, an indigenous group of people. Where we are, they are, there's about 2,000 Nama people living in the Varambad community. And we also work with a community conservancy just north of us, which is also Nama. The Nama are historically known for their art and their culture, and they were nomadic herders, and they moved with the wildlife. But now they haven't had access to the Orange River for over 100 years, along the banks of the Orange River, which is the most natural resource and kind of natural resource for income. And so they're sort of on this dry, barren land. They have to do sustainable farming of small stock. And in the communities that we work with, there's 90% unemployment.
Wow.
And there used to be a little bit of employment for mining. But the mines have closed in their region.
So they've been moved off the land they would traditionally use for their livelihood. They're having to do different types of jobs. Yeah,
exactly.
So not a great situation.
There's no wildlife really left on the community land. And there's a bit of poaching and livestock theft. The Nama people are incredible. They're witty, they're incredibly clever, they're hardy. I mean, what they've had to endure is they've been through a lot down there, and it's very much a forgotten. They're so far from the capital of Namibia, from Windhoek. We're 800 kilometers south, and there's no other NGO in the region, which has been a blessing. It's been a bit of a blank canvas, and we haven't had any sort of mistrust. So we've come in and sort of really brought and talked to the Nama people from day one.
Yeah.
And that's why when I started in tourism there, I got to know the local community, and we hired and spoke and worked with them from a tourism point of view, and so we didn't promise anything. And so
it's not just about restoring an ecosystem, it's restoring a way of life for these people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. A harmonious, balanced future for the
You
people.
make it sound almost easy. There must have been some challenges along the way. You're saying that like in a way it's a blank canvas and there wasn't other, but I mean there must have been some skepticism and maybe even hostility in places. How has it been?
I think being a foreigner in any land, it's always going to be challenging. Especially I don't speak the local language, the Nama language, and I also don't speak Afrikaans. So we're entering a land with different communities.
Is it quite a hard language to learn? Can you say hello in the language? Can you?
Amidere.
Okay. See, there you go. That's a start.
There you go. And it's a click language, the Nama language. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful language, and it's quite hard to learn. But I mean, I'm part of the family. We've been there for 10 years now, and we've made such an effort. And we're part of the women's groups. I know the children. I've grown up with them now, and I mean, it's been amazing. Of course, it took time. It took many conversations, and we've really shown up. Red and I have really shown up in that community, and just the proof's in the pudding, really, and developed relationships over time. And a lot of people, they didn't think we would last. The farmers didn't think we'd last there. The Nama people didn't think we'd last there. Like, who are these wild guys? And
I guess which sort of neatly brings us to my next question, which is, you've stuck in it, and that's built trust there. I mean, what does your sort of long-term vision of this co-management of this landscape with these the Nama people, between you and them, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we're definitely not doing the classic NGO route where the Nama people are the beneficiaries of Orca. We want them to be the shareholders and have equity in Orca. So we're going to launch joint venture, and we want the Nama people to own companies on Orca enterprise, on Orca landscape. And that's very important for us to open up the natural resource of the Orange River, whether it's for sustainable agriculture, whether it's for harvesting prosopis, which is an invasive tree species, which is a superfood on the market today. There's so many different business ventures that we're looking at. And this is why we're also growing organically and slowly, because we can't just expect the communities to already have the capacity to drive Orca forward as well, because we want the Nama people to sit on the board of Orca. Yeah. We're setting up a community advisory council, which is going to be all Nama. But at the moment, what we're doing is funding and putting our attention into capacity building. So leadership training, management, governance, and making sure that also the Nama people have a body that we can interact with and we can work with. Yeah. Because of course, with every community, there's disputes. And, so yeah.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you, sort of kind of asked it, but I guess answered it, but I guess, big groups like WWF have come in for some criticism for that kind of the way they've come in from the outside. I mean, you sort of touched on it with, I guess, the idea of this shareholder kind of model, but I mean, what are the safeguards going to be to ensure this isn't just a sort of conservation model imposed from the outside? What are the key steps there?
So we're setting up a community resilient fund as well, where we're putting 5% of every grant that we bring in, and it's sort of an incubator fund where the community can then apply and start their own and draw funding from it and start their own companies. And we'll help with the market research, we'll help with feasibility studies and research. We're also doing the Nama Advisory Council. And this is with all Nama people from all sorts of backgrounds from Namibia. We've got legal, and we're working with the Oak Foundation, and they're very in integrity, and their values are all about involving the community from the get-go. And we're drawing on lessons learned from all different models around the world, because this model of involving community as stakeholders is has not been done in Namibia before. And so rather than moving super quickly, we're moving slowly and making sure that we're working with the right people from the community as well, and giving them a seat and a voice.
In Britain, sometimes rewilding often gets sort of reduced to this very binary, rewilders versus farmers. And we talked about, the farmers' sons who's sort of removing some of the fences. How would you respond to, some concerns that rewilding might end up excluding traditional, I use traditional in quote marks here because for what you said earlier, but traditional land use like livestock farming, how do you ensure that?
We also work really closely with the commercial farmers. We're working with a very small population, and we've gotten to know these families and these neighbors over time, and we're definitely not buying up land and excluding them and kicking them out. When we purchase land from a farmer, they're allowed to live for the rest of their lives on their land. They're still allowed to farm in certain areas as well, as long as it's conservation friendly. And we're fully in support of communities still doing sustainable farming. It's just certain areas that we need to leave for wildlife. And we're also in support of adaptive farming that can increase their income as well. So more efficient farming. And we're fully in support of that. We're not, the commercial farmers are not the enemies. We're all working together. We all know that we want the community to thrive. And there is a place for farming.
And what about Namibia's also got a sort of known for having strong culture of hunting. Where does that fit into the vision?
Okay, so Orca Landscape itself is privately owned, and on Orca Landscape we're not going to do hunting, but we're all for communities benefiting from wildlife if they choose to. So if the stock gets too much, we have an overpopulation problem on Orca in the future, then we will relocate and translocate our wildlife onto communal land. And then if they choose to benefit from the income through sustainable trophy hunting, then we're fully in support of that.
And what sort of animals are we talking about that might be?
Oryx, springbok.
Yeah. Got you.
Yeah, antelope.
Yeah. So depending on how the breeding goes, where the hotspots of them end up going, it's not like you're just going to be hands off. There'll be some you're going to manage it. Is your point?
Exactly. We have a conservation management plan, and you need to keep the gene pool healthy, and you need to keep wildlife moving over. And so
And obviously, you'll be acutely aware of this. You're Brazilian. You brought up in London and in Namibia, and in an area that's got long colonial history. How are you making sure the sort of, you touched on this a bit, but it'd just be great to hear a bit more about how you ensure the power on the land sort of is shifting to the Nama people, the local people.
With integrity, we're moving slowly, and it's in our strategic plan that's been signed off in support of ministry, in support of the Nama Traditional Authority. Okay, so I think what's important to say is the Nama people have 13 clans, and there's a chief of every single one of these clans. And so from day one, I went and approached the NTLA, they're called, and we had a long conversation about the history, about the genocides, about, and I'm sitting there saying, I know that if Orca purchases land, it's moving it one step further away from you on paper. But how can we do this together? How can we rewrite history together and bring you in from day one? And each one of those chiefs of those clans gave me personally their blessing for Orca to move forward. And they said that they've never been approached by an NGO before, and they've never been asked before. So I can hold my hand up that we are in integrity, and we're involving them in every conversation. And we meet with them regularly, and they're all spread out, so it's very hard to get all together, and we take the time to invite them onto the land. I mean, one of the things we also want to do is we want to rename Orca, and we want to rename all the mountains on the land. We want to rename, give them, the Nama people, the chance to create a map of the land with their traditional names.
This sounds like, I imagine a big part of the appeal for them, I obviously don't know them, but I would imagine, given what you were saying about how disempowered they've been, is this all real opportunity for themselves here, right?
Yeah. there's a huge opportunity. The Nama are also the only indigenous group in Namibia that don't have a museum and a cultural center that speaks about their ways and their traditions. And so a lot of them have also forgotten their traditions. A lot of the children have not been blessed to grow up in a group of elders. A lot of the elders have passed on. And so there's this incredible group called the Orange River Queens, and it's an elders women group, and they're vibrant and amazing, and they're all about reviving Nama music, Nama culture, and we're fully in support of them. And so
hopefully this will be a big cultural revival as well as an ecological one.
Exactly, and we're fundraising at the moment to build a Orca headquarters, and it's going to be in Nama building style. And
what does a Nama building look like?
Sort of reeds from the Orange River, and then huts. Yeah.
Got you.
And in every step of what we do, we want to have, the cuisine to have Nama cuisine. We open our events with Nama prayers, and
what's the Nama equivalent of roast beef for a British person?
Goats.
Goats.
Yeah, a lot of goat meat.
How do they cook goat meat?
On the fire.
Okay. Is it good?
Yeah, it's delicious.
I mean, I'm veggie, so but I'll have to take your word for it.
No, when you come visit, you'll have to try it.
Okay. Looking forward a bit, Andreia, if you're sort of looking really big picture, like 5, 10, 20 years time, how would you like things to have panned out with Orca and the Nama people and that landscape we're talking about? What would you like it to look like?
So at the moment, we're really early days. We're in year 3 of setting up a nonprofit. And so we've now hired a fully fledged team. We're running, it's still hodgepodge on the ground. Some of us are in tents and some of us are sort of in old farmhouses. But we've got our team, we've built capacity on the ground. Everyone knows their role. And now we've also identified our key stakeholders. We know, we've signed an MOU with the Conservancy, and that's the first time that's ever been done in southern Namibia. And we have profiled all of our neighbors, and we know who our allies are and who's ready to go and wants to see this landscape opened up. And so the first major next step is securing a northern boundary fence. Once we've secured that fence, we can start bringing in predators. So we're bringing in the prey at the moment, getting our wildlife numbers up, and then we can have that ecological process, predator-prey dynamic. So then we don't need to have to intervene in terms of culling or, removing stock.
What sort of predators are we talking about here?
Cheetah.
Got you.
Yeah, there used to be lion on the Orange River as well.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So this is what the fence is for, to make sure livestock farmers on that side of it are happy about cheetah being brought back in.
We don't want to upset any of our neighbors. We want to work with them. They're going to know about it. It's going to be done in a phased approach. We want to make sure that our farmers are also benefiting from Orca too. So a lot of the farmers want to get into tourism and want to try different enterprises. And so,
And so you talked about how there was once this kind of majestic animal migration, there and that part. What would it, if you started to get back, obviously it's going to take a long time to get back to 6 million springbok, but if we get anywhere, any order of magnitude close to that, what would that mean? How will the sort of land look differently? Will it be more forested? I mean, not forested is probably going a bit far, but will there be a bit more vegetation? What will it look like?
Yeah, and the plains can be so thick, as high as your waist. There could be grasslands in a good year of rain. And there's flowers that come up, multicolored flowers, and they smell sweet of jasmine and sunset. So it's the land can look very green and very seasonally different and abundant.
Rolex supports your work through the Perpetual Planet Initiative. What does that mean for the work you do?
So Rolex have been amazing. They're an incredible supporter of us, and they've believed in us since the beginning, which has been really nice because we just came in new and we just, sold this vision and this dream. And they've been with us for the last 2 years on their journey. And they have been helping us develop biodiversity credits. So measuring the impact over time on the land having ecological bioindicators. So a biodiversity credit is basically a piece of land that's 1 kilometer squared or 1 hectare. And you have different indicators that you can measure over 1 year and to be able to sell that credit.
So this is this is the nature equivalent of carbon offsetting, which people might be familiar from. They might have paid a few extra pounds for their flight. The idea being the impact of that cancelled out. Yes. The idea is any individual or company might have an impact on biodiversity, where in their operations, say their buildings, and they can come to you, right, and buy sort of that measured improvement in.
You can buy measured improvement, but you can also buy intact landscape. So it's giving nature a value.
Yeah.
You know, and
so it doesn't get developed. So it doesn't give an over to other land uses.
So that it is preserved. And we're working with a strategic ally called the Land Banking Group. They're a fintech company based in Munich, and they're very ahead of the game in terms of biodiversity credits. So we're looking to roll that out on communal land with them. So they definitely want to look out.
So you're very much always thinking about the economic model, aren't you, of how these things are going to work and sustain over time.
Exactly. So Orca, we don't want to be only reliant on philanthropy. And tourism isn't going to wash our face. And so we definitely, Orca needs to bring its own income in, and we need to take some risks and think creatively. And biodiversity credits is a new market, but that's the way we're going. That's the space we're going into.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember during the COVID pandemic, reporting on a lot of conservation projects that were really suffering because they'd put all their eggs in the sort of ecotourism basket, and obviously that completely dried up. And I think it was a real wake-up call for a lot of people that they were going to have other sources of income for the future, right, in case something similar happened.
Exactly.
And I guess, you want to obviously scale this up. You said, it's early days at the moment. If you're trying to sort of scale this up to the model, the level of millions of hectares, what's going to be the challenge in doing that? Is it you guys as an organization sort of growing and, I don't know, getting more sophisticated and so on, or is it those relationships with local people? What's going to be the biggest challenges?
I think moving organically and in integrity, because if we just brought in a lot of money and came top down approach and moved so quickly, we're going to bypass some of our values, and that is talking to the right people in government. We're on a national border, so we need to make sure we're talking to immigration and talking to the security along the Orange River. And so we want to move in integrity so that we can bring the community and along with us on the journey. And so we can scale up to 1 million hectares. That's the vision. And it's very cheap, the land there on that side of the Orange River. It's only $60 a hectare.
Right.
And so whilst we're building this core pot of money as a reserve to actually purchase land, we want to move at a pace that we are speaking to all the right people along the way and training and hiring only from southern Namibia as well. So our team is 90% Namibian, mostly from the south, mostly Nama speaking. And so we want to move in integrity with the land. And the land is cyclical, and it moves, it has its own rhythm. It's the desert. And so we need to move at the pace of the Nama and the pace of the wildlife there.
And the million hectare is the target. What are we on at the moment?
We're at 160,000. It's huge. We've got 100 kilometers of
I like it.
river frontage.
Yeah.
It's been amazing progress. We grew by 509% last year.
I guess your point about the organic thing as well is like it's not going to work with people if you do try and rush it, but also it sounds like you've got a hell of a lot of work to do to build up the plants and the and the animal, the prey, as you were saying, before you start bringing in things like cheetah that are going to get
and let the land heal. It's been pillaged. And so let it breathe, let it heal. And it takes a long time to build trust and build relationships, and one wrong move could set us back. And there's not been a lot of people down there in southern Namibia, so we also have to convince people to come and and work with us and build our team, and we weren't really on the map a few years ago, and now it's
there you are. And people listening to this, there'll be a lot of people listening to this who'll be worried about climate change and declines in nature around the world. You probably share some of those concerns. I wonder what keeps you hopeful.
Being out there in the wild, it's so amazing. And I really have a lot of hope in Mother Nature and Mother Earth and its resilience. And the people there, like how much they do in the hardship of life and how much they just keep on going. That's what keeps me hopeful, and that's what keeps me going as well. They're just some of the happiest people I know, and some of the most like hardy and really, really kind people. And
Sounds like they might have quite a lot to teach the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I can almost imagine you. I can almost imagine. I want to know what the smells and sights were like when it had rained this year with the flowers. Was it quite? Did you feel like you were getting a glimpse of the future, maybe of a slightly more positive version of that landscape?
Completely, and it's unrecognizable if you take a fixed point camera photo of the same place in the dry and then after the rains. It's absolutely abundant. It just, as far as you can see, it's just green and full of wildlife and full of butterflies and owls, and it's really abundant. So it's very special.
A sign of what we could have if you're successful.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the change over time.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I hope you get there, Andreia.